As educators, you can make a significant contribution to the development of children's social and emotional skills and their mental health and well-being. The relationships between educators and children are central to social and emotional learning and development. However, being an educator of young children is very complex and can sometimes be challenging. Ongoing professional development and support can help. Educators who feel confident they have the knowledge and experience to foster children's social and emotional skills are better placed to make curriculum decisions that support children's learning and development and ultimately their mental health.
And one of the key elements of engaging around professional learning is to think about reflective practice, and how that operates within each service is very different. What we do around our professional learning is help educators to build their knowledge around mental health and well-being, so around children's social skills, their emotional skills and their sense of self. Once educators have been involved in professional learning, it's important for them to reflect on their current practices. So those things that they're doing really well, to build their strengths and to continue with those, requires that time and effort to be able to set aside to think about what's happening within the early childhood service.
Children's interests do change, so talking to the families and talking to the children is really important to find out, how their needs have changed.
I think the day you feel as though you know everything you need to know is the day you should leave the job, because you can never know everything you need to know when your job is something as rich and complex as working with children and working with families. I think in the areas of social and emotional learning, that sometimes children's behaviours in those areas can really test us. It can really push educators to the limit. So I think there needs to be a lot of support for educators. We want children to acknowledge their feelings and find constructive ways to express them. I would say exactly the same thing about educators.
Early childhood educators work in a dynamic environment. Accessing professional development to boost confidence and skills and receiving support from others are key to working effectively and supporting children's mental health and well-being.
Staff feeling supported, professionally and personally, is absolutely vital in order for them to be able to do this supportive work in relationship with a child. It's very important that early educators look after themselves, in their personal lives, and are feeling like they're, loved and nurtured and so forth. But at a professional level, services need to be providing adequate professional development and staff support in order for staff to feel looked after well enough and valued enough, and to have their cup filled enough in order to be able to then provide the support and containment for children in their care.
Despite knowing the value of professional development and support for educators, sometimes things can get in the way of this happening. These barriers can be things like time, resources and money. However, professional development and support can come in many shapes and sizes. Both can involve more formal activities, like courses or training, but they can also be less formal and done without needing a lot of extra resources. Some activities might come about by making the most of opportunities already available at your service, such as more experienced educators mentoring those who are less experienced. Other opportunities may come from resources in your community, like partnerships with other services and professionals.
From being involved with the Kids Matter Early Childhood Framework, many of the services fed back that through engaging with the framework and around the professional learning sessions, they actually not only deepened their understanding of children's mental health and well-being, they also deepened their understanding of each other. They engaged with each other in a slightly different way. They had time to set aside from the busyness of their day to actually sit and reflect and talk. And for some of the services, that was often the first time that they'd actually done that as a team, as a service. And what we found happening was that they had a deeper understanding of not only their relationships with each other, but that actually transferred into their understanding of children and their relationships with children, so that they'd have more incidental conversations and more quality conversations during the day about the children that they're actually working with. But it also helped them to feel good about themselves. So there was a sense of validation around the role that they actually were playing and the importance of the role that they were playing in children's lives.
There are practices that services can try that don't involve formal education and training. Some of these things might be already happening at your service as part of implementing the Early Years Learning Framework and your Quality Improvement Plan. This could be taking time for reflective practice, reviewing and talking about the Early Years Learning Framework and your practice as a team, doing a stocktake of the resources your service already has and can use for professional development and support. Resources can be the things like books, kits, or even people who have knowledge and experience in a particular area. It can be really useful to think about how you're already using these resources to support your team and what additional resources you may need.
Reflective practice is a key element around the Kids Matter Early Childhood Framework. From professional learning through to implementation, through to a range of strategies that educators can use, we encourage educators to reflect on what they're currently doing and what changes that they'd like to see. We know that reflective practice is also a high priority for both the Early Years Learning Framework and the National Quality Standard, and we like to see this linked together.
The final thing that's really important for educators to be able to do, or to be, I suppose, is to be self-aware, to appreciate their own strengths, to appreciate what challenges them, what they find hard, and to work in a culture where it's okay to be challenged, it's okay to take reasonable risks and to fail. In other words, to a learning culture where the idea is that everybody is a learner, a culture where educators are supported to learn more, and where they're valued for what they can contribute today.
Support for educators is essential to help you make a significant contribution to children's social and emotional learning and development and their mental health.